Hello, my name is Literary Haley. I love to talk about books, specifically romance books, where audiobooks are my jam. Let's talk about the 10 books that I've managed to read so far this month. 8 of them were physical and 2 were ebooks, however, all were paired with audios. Starting off this month, I read the Wallflower series by Lisa Kleypas. I have seen others compare this series. If you've loved Bridgerton, then you'll love this. So if that sounds like your cup of tea, then I would check out this series. But if you do read this series, I highly recommend that you listen to the audios or obtain the newer editions of this series, as to these ones that I have here have outdated language. The series follows 4 women who are wallflowers, and they band together to scheme their way into marriages. Upon their scheme, they decide to go from the oldest all the way to the youngest. Jumping into book 1, which is Secrets of a Summer's Night. Step back. This follows Annabelle and Simon. Annabelle comes from a poor family and Simon is a self-made man. Simon's not known for being a decent man, if you will, but this is Annabelle's last season to find a husband. And Annabelle really tries to fight her feelings for Simon, but she just can't. Some of my favorite moments in this is there's a scene that happens and Simon has to cut her dress off of her, and I loved that scene so much. Book 2, it happens when autumn, follows Lillian and Marcus. Now Lillian came over from the Americas, and her father came over in hopes of finding his daughter's rightful men to marry. Lillian is the older sister of his daughters. So Lillian and her family are staying at Marcus's estate because Marcus is a businessman and her father wants to jump in on a project with him. And the two aren't supposed to fall in love, but of course they do. There was a really awesome scene in the butterfly garden in this book, and I loved that scene so much. Even though Lillian and Marcus have this uncanny connection, Sebastian wiggles his way in and tries to make Lillian fall in love with him by force. And I hated Sebastian in this one, but he gets his redemption in Devil in Winter, and it totally worked for me. This is my favorite book in the series, and according to Goodreads, this is everybody else's favorite too. This follows Evie and Sebastian, and Evie has had an extremely rough life. In order to get out of what's happening with her family, she goes to Sebastian and essentially tells him, marry me, I have money, we can both help each other out. And so the two have this marriage of convenience, which is also one of my favorite tropes. And Sebastian is desperate to cling on to love, and so he's like, yeah, let's do it. I just love this so much. Let me tell you everything that I loved about this book. He calls her pet, my sweet, my love. There's who hurt you. He also swears that they're just in a marriage of convenience, but he wears her ring around his neck. This is the one. The last book in the series, which is Scandal in Spring, follows Daisy and Matthew. Now, Daisy is the sister of Lillian, which Lillian is from book 2. Daisy is the younger sister, and their fathers are trying to get them married to successful men. But since it's proven to become challenging, her father arranges a sort of something with Matthew Swift. And the reason her father arranges this marriage between Daisy and Matthew is because Matthew is actually his second-hand man in his business. So her father trusts Matthew, and Matthew has taken well with the business, and so her father can pass on the business to Matthew. Her father is really adamant on this marriage. Only issue is that Daisy has known him since they were young, but they haven't seen each other in a while. So when they finally see each other, she's a little bit shocked. Matthew is super sweet, and there is a scene in here where they're lawn bowling that reminded me a lot of what happened in season 2 of Bridgerton, and I just love that moment so much. The next book I read is The Bad Guy by Celia Aaron. This book is described as a dark romance between a captor and a captive. This follows Sebastian and Camille, and they first meet during one of Sebastian's company parties. His employee brings his date, which happens to be Camille, and Sebastian immediately is like, oh, I want her. He plans and schemes and he does these things to kind of force Camille to fall in love with him. This is very light, in my opinion, with dark romance, and so I recommend this book for those who are wanting to get into like captor captive or darker romances, I feel like this is a really good start. Moving along, I read the Deliver Us series by Pam Godwin. This is 9 books. There's 3 books in each of these books. All 3 of these books follow very dark moments in time, not even morally gray. They're almost irredeemable characters. Very heavy triggers in this. It's very dark. These are kind of a lot to go over and to kind of say what's happening in each one without giving you spoilers. So if you are interested in seeing my full reviews, they are on my Goodreads. Staying with Pam Godwin, I read Lesson in Sin, and holy hell, this freaking book, oh my gosh, I'm obsessed. This has like all of my favorite tropes: student teacher, age gap, virgin heroine, tension, angst, just fighting feelings so hard. Very forbidden. Tinsley is a Constantine, and she is the youngest of a rich and powerful family, but she has a mind of her own. She wants to do things the way she wants to do them. She doesn't want to be in an arranged marriage. She wants her own life, and so she rebels a bit, and her mother forces her to go to an all-Catholic girls' school, where we meet Father Magnus. And Father Magnus is her instructor, and he has to break her in. It is good. And the last book I read is Vicious Bonds by Shanora Williams. This book, oh my freaking gosh. This is a, I'm going to say light fantasy romance. This is also a play off of Peaky Blinders. This follows Willow and Kaz. And Willow is really struggling with life. She goes to a seer, and she's told that she'll never find romance in this life, and so that makes her even more lost because everyone that Willow is close to leaves her. She's starting to think that's true, and then she starts hearing voices in her head, and this turns out to be Cass. And Cass is from a different realm, if you will. These two have this really intense, strong bond, but it's also very dangerous, and so both of their lives are at risk. This is book 1 in an incomplete series, and I'm really excited to see where it goes. And that's all the books that I've read so far this month. A really successful first half of the month. I cannot wait to see what the rest of this month brings. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.